very excited to have this Colorado conversation today with an old dear friend. I mean, a friend who's been around for a long time. Not old, a long-time friend. How about that? Barb Kamlet is her name. I've known her for a better part of a decade or longer now, really, because of what she does and the organization she started. It's called Shimmering Wings, and they host Camp Aaron Denver every year. And anybody who's paid attention to the news over the last few years knows that this is a cause that's near and dear to my heart because I'm a volunteer with the organization. I'm on the board of directors, and every year we hold Camp Aaron Denver. It's a grief camp for kids, and it got started years and years ago because of this lady right here next to me. So we're going to spend the next 20 or so minutes talking about the great things that Shimmering Wings does, how you can get involved too, and maybe just some grief tips, because it's something we all deal with, of course, and it's something that we don't like to talk about in this country. Barb, you and I have talked about this a million times. Americans have a very strange relationship with death, and it's something people don't like to talk about. And as a result, that means that a lot of times kids aren't really taught the right way to grieve, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's part of the reason camp exists, right? Tell me about the origins here. How did this camp come about?
Sure. So Camp Aaron actually started in Seattle. Erin Metcalf was 15 when she was diagnosed with liver cancer. Yeah. She had a great heart for kids and helping kids, and unfortunately Erin died a couple years later. And so she had partnered, her parents had actually partnered with Jamie Moyer, who's the founder of the Moyer Foundation, now the Aluna Network. And Jamie and Karen Phelps Moyer wanted to start something for grieving kids. Yeah. So it's because of Erin that Camp Aaron exists. And the whole purpose is just to help grieving kids find a way of being validated with their feelings, to get peer support, to know that their grief is okay.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Jamie Moyer was a Major League Baseball player, played for the Rockies for a while, and a bunch of other teams. And so initially, at least, Camp Aarons were set up in every Major League Baseball town.
Correct.
And so these exist all over the country. And again, they're grief camps for kids here in Colorado. It's a weekend out in the wilderness in the summer, and it's really something. In fact, I want to show you what last year's camp looked like. Let's take a look.
Welcome to camp. Hello.
If you had to pick the two most popular summer campers at Silver Cliff Ranch over the weekend,
oh, they're so cute.
Chief and Jewel would win by more than a hair.
So fluffy.
Good thing they don't mind boops and squeezes and being smothered in hugs. Really, it's why they're here.
Have you ever had someone special die?
If anyone could use a hug, it's the kids at Camp Aaron Denver.
Have you ever talked to your person that died like they could hear you?
This is a camp for about 50 Colorado kids grieving a heartbreaking loss.
I'm Michaela, and I'm remembering my mom who died from cancer.
I'm Aubrey. I'm remembering my little brother who died from cancer.
I'm Kaylee, and I'm remembering my parents that died in a car accident exactly 8 months ago.
Back on New Year's Day, 12-year-old Kaylee was out for a car ride near Boulder with her dad, mom, brother, and their puppy Madison when their vehicle crashed and rolled over.
We had slid off the road, and it all kind of happened so fast, so I don't know all the details.
Kaylee and her brother suffered some minor injuries and had to go to the hospital.
And the sheriff walks in, and he goes, "Mom and Dad didn't make it." And on our way home, I was like, I'm never going to see them again. And when I got home, it really hit me.
Dad liked Blue, right? That was his favorite.
This year, Cole...
He died from stage 4 colon cancer.
And Joseph...
Like at home, I don't have really any ways of dealing with it.
Grant...
There's a light bulb. No matter how many times we change it, it's going to be flickering. So he's there.
And Donovan.
When my mom came home, we had a talk, and she was like, Daddy has stopped suffering.
And all the others
Make like a semicircle.
got to spend a whole weekend
1, 2, 3. Tile smash!
having a little fun.
I'm Magic and I'm leaving behind cancer.
Yeah!
Which was a welcome change. And doing activities designed to help cope with grief.
I think seeing the kids from Friday when they're scared and anxious and what am I doing here, and to see them leaving. I mean, these kids have bonded so quickly this weekend. To see them leaving with that, yeah, that's perspective.
Plus, they got to squeeze Chief and Jewel, two of the most effective therapy tools at camp.
If someone's feeling a little down, they could pet the dogs anytime and calm down.
The dogs love the kids love the dogs.
Their handler, Denise, knows the power of the pup.
But it's something I love, and it's something they love to do.
And the pain of loss. She first started bringing them to Camp Aaron in 2013, soon after the death of her own daughter.
Some dogs seem to understand what's going on, or understand that you need a hug, or understand that you need to hug them to feel better.
Dogs don't solve every problem.
I'm David, and a word that comes to mind for my dad is caring.
And they sure won't cure the heartbreak these kids are going to feel for the rest of their lives.
I'm Ben. I'm remembering my brother Noah, and a word that comes to mind is art.
But what a welcome presence they bring, especially to Kaylee. Her puppy, Madison, also didn't survive that crash that changed everything. Nice to have a weekend with a couple new friends and a whole camp full of kids to help her realize even though she may feel lonelier than ever, she's sure not alone.
Together, we become a mosaic of gifts, sparkling with individual lights, gemstones polished by the touch of those who now dwell among the stars.
So that was the magic that happened at Camp Aaron Denver 2025, and Barb plans obviously already underway for Camp Aaron Denver 2026. This year, sort of the same routine, I'm guessing, right? A lot of kids who will be showing up, and a lot of them dealing with recent grief, I'm guessing, too. What are some of the cases that you see typically at a camp?
Oh, gosh. You know, I know I've said this to you before, Jeremy, that when we first got the grant, I thought it would just be sort of a normal grief. Maybe grandma died in her sleep when she was 96. They're not like that. We have a lot of suicides and overdose, probably our highest percentage of kids that come to camp. More recently, we had a lot of homicide deaths. And then we have car accidents, drunk driving, heart attacks, cancer. Some of those kinds of things.
And tell me about some of the activities that we do at camp, because there's all kinds of them, and you saw some of them in the story there. My favorite every year is the tile smash, because it's just something fun for kids to do, but there's a real deeper meaning there. And what that is typically they're given a couple of tiles, and they write out their feelings and the things they want to let go of, right?
For sure. Yeah, so it's a symbolic way of the kids releasing some of the feelings that they're bringing to camp. Sometimes they leave camp and they've released those feelings. A lot of times it's just, again, that symbolic sort of letting go. So yeah, they have two tiles. One is a take home in memory of their person, and the other tile is the feelings that they're feeling. And man, some of them are just really, really tough to read.
Yeah, really are.
And then we take them to a spot where they can safely throw it and break it. And it's really awesome that the kids cheer each other on. Just for that, again, the peer support of we're here for you.
So at the end of camp, you've got dozens of smashed up tiles, and I love that there's a board member at Shimmering Wings, Michael Gold, who makes art out of these tile mosaics, and they're really poignant and really touching, right?
You know, because I don't get a chance to really look at the tiles, but when I see Michael's piece and I can really look at the feelings, he captures it.
Yeah. Really does. It's also striking to me that, I think that a lot of times people think, oh, a grief camp, that's going to be very heavy stuff. In fact, the drummer that we have come every year, Josh Robinson, he jokes about that. He's like, oh, grief camp, that sounds like a lot of fun. But the reality is, it is a lot of fun, and sometimes that's what these kids need, is just some fun, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, so we have swimming, we have fairy hair, we have a pet therapy dog. Two pet therapy dogs, actually, that the kids play with and lay on, and sometimes do fairy hair with them, put them in their skits.
Those poor dogs, I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a misnomer that we sit around and talk about grief all weekend. We don't.
Yeah. But it's also striking that really what these kids leave with is this camaraderie, because they're at school all day, and they're around kids who can't relate to what they're going through. In fact, I remember at one camp, you and I have talked about this, we were shooting a story, the very first camp Aaron and I ever went to, and there were these girls sitting at the dinner table talking, and one of them sort of said, well, at school I'm the weird kid.
She said, they call me the one-less parent.
The one-less parent, yeah. And that really hits you, because you realize that these kids don't have others who can relate to them day to day. So when they go to this camp, they really find their people.
You know what was so amazing about that conversation? One is that you even captured it, because it's a very noisy dining hall. And when I heard that the first time, and probably even now, I was horrified. And the kids don't flinch because they get it. They speak that language. They understand.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. It's such a touching thing. We're talking about Shimmering Wings and Camp Aaron Denver, a grief camp for kids. But the reality is, it's not just for kids. Shimmering Wings does programming for adults as well, and we're going to get into that when we return right here on Colorado Conversations. Back now having a Colorado conversation with Barb Kamlet. She's the executive director of Shimmering Wings, the nonprofit that organizes a couple of camps every year to help with grief. One is Camp Aaron Denver. It's a grief camp for kids ages 6 to 18.
6 to 17.
17. And then fairly recently, there's this camp for adults. And I say fairly recently. It's been going on for almost a decade now, but we just had one recently. It's called Next Page. And before we get into that, let's take a look at Next Page. It's called Next Page Parents and Guardian Experience. And here's what happened just a couple of weeks ago down in Black Forest.
Yeah, so this camp is called Next Page. So it's Next Page Parent and Guardian Experience.
If one of them speaks to you, or maybe something you see a lot in your kiddos, you know, feel free to pick it up and share whatever feels comfortable.
We are Shimmering Wings. We're a nonprofit. We provide grief support for individuals.
Whew, another one. That's heavy. Empty.
And this weekend we're at the Black Forest at Camp La Forêt. We have 6 women who are supporting grieving kids.
I would say that's a new one that I don't think I really was even a word in my vocabulary until Al got sick.
Causes of death, there was a couple of homicide deaths, there's a suicide death, an overdose death, cancer death, and some of them are actually grieving themselves because of the relationship that they left or that left them because of the really significant changes that have happened to them.
My name is Cameo DiDomenis, and I am remembering my husband Al. Al died from glioblastoma, which is a type of very aggressive brain cancer that they have not yet found a cure for. So I have 2 boys. It's nothing you can ever prepare for. It's not something you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be 38 years old and be a widow. You know, it's not something you think you're ever going to experience. As a mom, and now a single mom, I spend all of my time taking care of my boys. I don't get time to take care of myself and work through my grief.
How are they going to adapt to the situation? They're going to have to navigate a new normal. They're going to have to understand what this all means to them. And you all as a family are going through the same grief, right? I would always tell families, we don't want the kids to grieve alone. Don't want them to grieve in isolation. This is a family situation. Let's try to do some family grief here, so whatever that means.
When we got to Camp Aaron Grant and we started doing that camp and talking to the adult caregivers about why we do this, so many of them said, I wish there was something like that for me.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a luminary. It can be about your person, it can be about your current family, it can be about whatever you want it to be.
We believe that the adults need to be supported and educated around their own grief in order to help the kids.
Because it was something we did together, so.
I think it's also that peer support, that these women are together and hearing other women to say, I'm struggling with.
Yeah, we figured it out. You can't just walk out there and find someone else who, you know, has grieving children. So it's comforting to be in a place where it feels normalized.
It's beautiful and it's painful as a facilitator to listen to what these women are experiencing. And we're doing it because
is there anything that's present?
There needs to be a place for them to go.
Al wouldn't want me to be living lonely. And that I deserve to be happy. But there's definitely guilt with that.
Yeah. It's incredibly hard, but I'm glad that we have a place that we can do that.
I've been so thankful for resources such as Shimmering Wings and other resources because they really have been life-changing for myself and my kids.
Maybe you have some discomfort around this feeling or it doesn't totally fit.
I hope they go home with support from each other. I think that's so important to have peers that they can talk to who get it.
It is hard. It's hard. But we can do hard things.
So there you have it, a camp for adults who are helping grieving kids too. And Barb, this all came about because of sort of a vision that you had had for helping others, right?
Sure, yeah. When we first got the Camp Aaron grant, we always interview the kids and their adult caregivers, and so many adult caregivers said, I lost my mom when I was 6, and I wish there was something like that for me. Yeah. Even as adults, maybe if they didn't have that death loss, just to understand what their children are going through. So so we created Next Page, and it's a time for the adult caregivers to come and be educated, be supported, to be pampered, just have time to themselves.
Yeah, it was really something. It was striking to be in the room. I think there were about 6 women there who were dealing with grief, some recent, some a few years back, but each of their stories were so tragic in that, I think we have this idea of what it must be like to be a single parent or single caregiver, but there are all these added layers that most of us never think about, right?
Sure. Family dynamics,
yeah.
For sure. Logistically trying to figure out how to get their kids all kinds of places when there used to be another person to help get them there. Yeah. Unexpected, what word do I want to use? Taking on kids that aren't theirs. They're, a family member died and then they take on more kids, and how that changes a whole family system.
Yeah, it really does. How do you measure success after a camp like that? How do you know that it's worked or that you've gotten through to the women who showed up?
I would say for this Next Page, they're all different.
Yeah.
So the staff went to bed early Saturday night, and they stayed up late and they were laughing and connecting and creating stories. And I think success for me is that they stay connected.
Yeah.
And I think this group probably did.
Because there was a Next Page a few years back where a lot of the women are still in touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, the first year.
In fact, one of the campers came this time around too, didn't she?
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she seems like she's doing great.
Yeah, she came just to sort of talk about her experience. And
yeah.
Yep.
It's similar to Camp Aaron in that I think a lot of these women don't have anybody else to talk to that can relate, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a commonality, that they speak a language that other people just can't. They can support, but they don't understand the way that these women did.
Yeah. What was, I think to the outsider, they might think, I can't imagine spending your entire career sort of focused this heavily on grief. Why is this so important to you? I know that you've had personal grief journeys too, but why did this draw you? Why did it matter so much to you?
For Camp Aaron?
Just in terms of getting into this work, grief work, hospice work, that sort of thing.
I hate to say this because it sounds a little bit trite, but some friends and I did a retreat one time on personal mission. And we met afterwards to debrief, and I don't know, the word bereavement fell out of my mouth, and it just felt right.
Interesting.
It's not anything I would have anticipated doing years ago. So the trite part is, it feels like a calling, but for me, it's my passion. It's what I love.
Yeah, and as we said, every single one of us deals with it. Every one of our family members will deal with it too. But it seems like so seldom do we get it right. And what I've also sort of learned over the last decade or so at Camp Aaron is I don't even know what right is, because there's so many different ways to do it.
For sure. I think there's more wrong ways to do it than there are right ways. I think the most important thing is to be present to feelings. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people try to avoid them through all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Substance abuse, whatever. Eventually it'll come back.
Yeah. It will. You've got to deal with it one way or the other.
Yeah, feel the feelings.
Yeah. We are having a Colorado conversation with Barb Kamlet, Executive Director of Shimmering Wings. They're the local nonprofit that puts on a couple events every year, including Camp Aaron Denver. It's a grief camp for kids. And we will keep the conversation going right here on Colorado Conversations when we come back. We're having a Colorado conversation with one of my favorite people in the world, Barb Kamlet, who just had a birthday, by the way. Happy birthday to you. She's Executive Director of Shimmering Wings. It's a nonprofit here in Denver that helps people deal with childhood death loss. And typically that means kids who are going through the death of an adult who's close to them. It could be a parent, could be a grandma, aunt, uncle, sibling. We've seen it all at camp, and every year we get a few dozen kids who show up, get 48 hours in the woods, get to talk about what they're going through, hopefully get some coping skills, and also talk to other kids who are going through the same thing. And one of my favorite things at camp, we'll show a little bit of it here right now, is the luminary ceremony. It's typically the end of the first full day of camp, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And they decorate these luminaries. Tell me about the process and why is this so poignant?
Sure. So for me, it's like the peak experience of camp.
Yeah.
I always think about it sort of like, not that I do roller coasters, but if I did, you know, so like that slow incline, and then that's the peak, and then camp's over. Yeah. So the luminary ceremony, so they do 2 luminaries. One is a little mason jar with little fairy lights that we put around. And the other, we're changing it this year to water lanterns that we put in the water at dusk.
Yeah.
And so all the kids get a like a LED star blue necklace, and it's just so beautiful. It's quiet and dark and just the blue light showing. And each person, volunteer and participant, gets to put their lantern into the water and say a quality about their person. It's so sacred and solemn and beautiful, and yeah.
It really is. It's touching. It's emotional. I think everybody gets pretty emotional when they're talking about that at camp, and it's really something to witness, and it really brings everybody together. It's also striking to me that there have been campers who are now volunteers. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we've had a couple. Actually, my granddaughter has volunteered for 2 years. She was a camper the first year that we got the grant. And we'd love for campers to come back as volunteers. So once they're 18, they can come back and be cabin buddies, activity buddies to support the kids. And they certainly get it on a level that not all the volunteers can understand either.
Yeah. That said, a lot of the volunteers are dealing with a lot of grief too, right? Yeah. They're sort of drawn to this, it seems like. And you work work with other camp parents too to make sure everybody's sort of learning from each other and that sort of thing.
So we kind of have what I call a sister relationship with Camp Aaron in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
I got to go visit there several years ago, and we just bonded, and we steal ideas from each other. So some of their camp things we have, and some of our camp things they have.
Nice, yeah. Makes every camp better. I think people are watching this and they're going to think, okay, I've got somebody in my family that's grieving, maybe a child. I'd like to get involved. I'd like my kid to come to camp, or I'd like to volunteer. So what should they do? Sure.
So they can go to our website, shimmeringwings.org. We have a new website, and they can just go to the link and sign up. And if it's a camper family, either I will meet with them, or our clinical director, Deborah, will meet with them, and we interview them and make sure the kids are appropriate. If it's a volunteer application, then our volunteer director, Alicia, will interview them. But everyone is screened before they come to camp.
Yeah, everybody, to make sure all the right folks are there. And with just a minute or so left here, I wonder, what would you say to people about grief and our relationship with it? What should they know? What are we getting wrong? I know those are big questions to answer in a minute, but what would
in a minute or less.
Right? What would you say to folks who want those answers?
I would say grief it's not a problem. It's a life experience. It's just like birth. It's like marriage. It's a life experience that has to be honored and recognized as that.
Yeah.
It's so stigmatized, unfortunately, but yeah, I think if I could have anything in the grief world, it would be just for people to be kind and to not have all those euphemisms around get over it, move on.
Yeah.
Because you don't. Grief stays.
You've taught me a little bit about that too. I mean, I used to say passed away, and that's just terminology that I don't use anymore because of what we've talked about.
Right, yeah. At camp, we use the word died and dead.
Yeah, because that's just what it is. Anything else sort of glosses over it, right? Like yeah, so it's important the words we use and how we treat others when it comes to grieving. And one of the things you always say too that's striking to me is it's okay to cry, it's okay not to cry, it's okay to laugh. All those things. There's these expectations about how we're supposed to feel when somebody dies, and there's really no blueprint, right?
There's, if I can say really quick, there's a great podcast, TED Talk, named Nora McInerney.
Okay.
And she talks about, when we have a baby, we celebrate, and it's really cool. And then they're a year old, and we have cake, and they smash it in their face, and it's so cool.
Right.
And she said, we don't, when a child is 5, say, really, you're doing it again?
Yeah.
Aren't you over it?
Right.
But we do that with death.
Good point. Yeah. Very good points. Talking to Barb Kamlet, Executive Director of Shimmering Wings, the nonprofit that puts on Camp Air Denver every year. Can't wait for this year's camp, and of course we'll have the full story here on Fox 31. We have links to all of our Camp Air coverage from the past at kdvr.com as well. We do thank you for joining us for this Colorado conversation. We're back with another one tomorrow right here on Fox 31 Plus.